it's probably a good question to ask both of you guys, and maybe Mark, you can start.
Yep.
What do you see as the benefit of a twin fin design?
Wow, that's a question I could talk for hours on, Pete. The benefits of a twin fin. I think the number one thing is that they're a ton of fun to ride. They go great in small waves. We've discovered that, I guess back in the 70s, twin fins were, there was a certain design, a wing swallowtail board with a wide nose and a narrower tail and a V bottom. That was the only thing that you put twin fins in and rode as a twin fin. Now there's so many options and various boards that you can stick twin fins in. But I guess like in a nutshell, they're fun to ride, they're fast, they're easy to ride, and for me they kind of make small waves fun, and they actually make small waves easy to ride. They're just like so free and flowing and loose and kind of a live feeling that you can go out in 2 to 3 foot surf and actually have a ton of fun on them. And they've got tons of glide and speed. It feels, to create that speed on a wave, it feels effortless, and I think it takes probably less power to surf one than it does to actually surf a thruster really well. So it's I don't know, probably asking the wrong person.
No, I don't think so. That was perfect.
Well, maybe the right person, because I'm so associated with twin fins, and so stoked about riding twin fins, and it's it's so cool to see so many people actually embracing twin fins these days. But for me, they've always been super fun to ride. I love riding them, and it kind of feels like every time I paddle out on a twin fin, it feels like you're paddling out on a pair of shoes that you've broken in and you really like wearing, and they're super comfortable and easy to walk in.
Perfect. No, that's gold. And Vince, what from your point of view, what do you see as the benefit of the twin fin design?
Oh, I think the key words that Mark said were fast and free. I think that's what's really enjoyable about twin fins, is they don't have that center fin that causes that resistance back there that you push off of. So it's a really free feeling, and the area of the fin is a lot bigger. And the funny thing is you have about the same area as a thruster in the twin fins that you do a thruster, but it's all moved underneath that inside rail. So you still get the pivot, and you can still, get some drive off of it, but yet it's so free. And when you stand up on it, it feels so much faster right from the get-go. Yeah, so did you guys, when you first came out with the twin, it was pure twin, right?
It was pure twin, yeah.
And then how long after doing the twin fins did you add the stabilizer to it?
It was a long time after, Vince. Like, I rode twin fins in the very early 70s when I was riding boards shaped by Jeff McCoy. Jeff was shaping in Brookvale in Sydney, and he was the kind of, for want of a better word, he was the Almeric of the era. Jeff was making the most, progressive and probably the best boards in Australia at the time. And I originally rode Jeff's single fins, and I started riding twin fins. And my memory of them is they went great, but they were the S-deck ones with a lot of flip in the nose, and they had really thick tails and tiny twins on each corner. And I guess the reason that they stopped being popular and kind of faded as a design was the fact that they had a lot of problems with sliding, especially in decent surf. And then for me, my second introduction to twin fins came in 1976 when Reno Avalera was surfing in the 2SM Coca-Cola contest in Sydney. And Reno was staying with Terry Fitzgerald at the time, and Terry had a yellow combi, and I was always envious of their surfboards, because they would pull up at Narrabeen in the morning, and Reno and Terry, Reno had the left-hand side of the van, Terry had the right, and they had this whole quiver of surfboards. And with that event, it was held in a series of rounds, and there were points for manoeuvres in each round, and every round counted. And on a couple of the smaller days, Reno rode a round nose wing swallow, like fish, like really flat rocketed fish style twin fin, and he was flying across these little, I can still picture it, flying across these little rights at Narrabeen when everyone on single fins was bogging down. So I had ridden Reno's boards in Hawaii at the time, his single fins, during the events, and asked him for some dimensions of the board he was riding, and he suggested some dimensions for me. So I went straight home and made this, round nose fish style 20 that I absolutely loved, but I only rode it on 2 to 3 foot days in Newcastle, and the design sort of didn't go anywhere. It was kind of a fun board just to ride on little days, and again, stop me because it's kind of a long story here.
No, go on. And if it leads to the stabilizers, go.
Well, it kind of then led to, I think it was the winter of 77, 78. I was in Hawaii, and I'd had some boards from Dick Brewer at the time, and Dick was acknowledged as the greatest gun shaper and a full guru of knowledge of surfboard shaping for boards for Hawaii. And I asked him, I could shape at the time. I was shaping at the time, but the problem I was having with shaping was that I had the skills with my hands, but I didn't have the process to visualize the image of what I had in my head of what I wanted to produce. So, as you know, when you shape a surfboard, you've got an image, especially in the hand shaping days, of how you want it to turn out. But I could never get the image, and my hands wouldn't actually create the image. So he was kind enough to let me spend 2 weeks with him, basically, shaping and teaching. It was invaluable for me. And at the time I was riding single fins, and we used to have these really long discussions about things in the shaping room, and I was telling him about Reno and the fish, and me making this little fish 20 that went great when it was small. And the problem I was having competitively at the time was that with my size and weight, I was having trouble with narrow tail single fins, bogging down when the surf was small. And I said, I've got this single fin that goes great when the surf's really good. I've got this little 20 that was inspired by Reno at home that goes great when the surf's 1 to 2 feet. But I said I struggle in that in-between area, and that's where all these events are held. And he just kind of looked at me and just went, it's really simple, just like design a board. He said, it sounds like a twin fin is the answer to what you need. And he said, all you've got to do is go home and design a board that fits somewhere between a single fin and the fish style twin fin. And that was when, the light bulb kind of went off, and I kind of got the idea to go home and make a twin fin, which was 78, and that was the multicoloured FreeRide twin that was in the FreeRide movie. And I just tried to combine the best aspects of the singles that I was riding and the 20 that was inspired by Reno. So basically I took the fish and made it way narrow and more rocker and more V, or the other side of the equation is I took a single fin and shortened, widened and thickened and increased the V and stuck a wing swallow in. There's a whole bunch of other stuff I did as well, but that was the idea, to come up with a board in between. And the board went incredible, and it became my sort of secret competitive weapon for most of except for the Hawaiian surf, like all the events around the world at the time. So, that, again, I could expand on that, but I'll keep going. And then, time sort of moved on. And then Simon Anderson invented the thruster. And, when Simon invented the thruster, I guess it was 6 months later, and the twin fins were just, pretty much like dinosaurs.
Lost.
They ended up in the Smithsonian or something.
Right.
Everyone lost interest in them. And continuing on in time, I think it was early 2000s, I was obviously shaping thrusters at the time, and I was, should I keep going here? Just going forever.
Yeah, well, if this leads into the design, how you came up with your twin fin design,
Wasn't
maybe
until
you
the
could give
2000s.
Sorry?
It wasn't until the 2000s?
I think it wasn't until the 2000s. I can't remember the exact date, but that fin set it's over 20 years old. It hasn't changed in 20 years, or that template hasn't really changed in 20 years with the stabilizer.
This is like this.
And the inspiration from that actually came from Hiromichi Soida, whose surfboard, he was on the tour for a few years when I was on the tour. He started a surfboard business in Japan, which is called Soida Surfboards Japan. And I was supplying him with thrusters, and he sent me, I think it was a letter at the time, I don't think there was any emails back then, saying his team riders wanted some twin fins, and I tried to kind of talk him out of it because I was going, they're not going to like twin fins, they just like after riding thrusters, they feel like they're going to slide, and no one was riding twin fins or designing twin fins at the time. So he sort of persevered and he said, the guys want them, they want twin fins. And I figured if I sent them, I figured I had to modernise the shape. And basically all I did was I kind of created my Super Twin model, which was just a scaled down version of the original retro twin, married in template with a narrower nose, married to, modern rockers and concaves from a thruster. And I shaped a few and I thought I thought the boards looked right, but I was still worried about the fin configuration because the twin fins at the time were quite a wide base, tall, upright fin. And I kind of kept having this thought that, the boards are going to be great, but the fin's going to be wrong for the boards because they'll jump on them and they'll feel super loose and skatey, but they'll have no sort of forward drive because with a 20, you really need your foot just a little bit behind the fins or over the top of the fins, as opposed to a thruster where your foot's way back on the tail block. And one of the dangers when you get off a thruster and get on a twin fin is if your foot is too far back. A twin tends to mush out when you're trying to turn because your foot is actually behind the fins.
Sorry, Mark, I'll just get you to start with that last little bit. Just that.
Sorry, the car. That was right, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a tangent. So
No, it was actually good because I think that's important because you were saying if you try and surf with your foot back way behind the twin fin, you don't get that forward. You don't get the pushback from the fin, the high pressure.
Yeah. So my worry there was that I thought the boards were really good, but I didn't have confidence in the actual twin fin that I'd been using that because I was worried that because they'd been surfing thrusters and their foot was like way back on the tail block between the fins, I thought they're going to get on these boards, their foot is going to be behind the fins, and every time they turn, the board will slide or actually, mush out in the turn. It won't have that sort of forward drive that they're used to from, the power of the back fin in a thruster. It's not a new, coming up with stabiliser was not a new invention at the time. I think it had, been done before and people had experimented with all different fin configurations. But I sort of got the idea that initially I thought I'll just make a little version of my twins, my fat upright fin and stick it in the tail. And I made a couple of templates and they kind of looked really ugly. It wasn't a cute looking fin.
Right.
And as much as it doesn't matter in fin design, I think a fin has got to look, it's got to look cute,
Pleasing.
It's got to look racing,
Yeah.
It's got to be pleasing to the eye.
I agree.
Like you can't have a fat, ugly looking fin.
Well, it's like a surfboard. You can't have bumps in the curve.
Yeah,
right?
it's got to kind of look good.
Yeah.
It's got to have a certain amount of appeal on the rack or on the shelf when you look at it. So then I thought, okay, I'll make a racier looking stabiliser. So I drew some little templates for the stabiliser and cut a couple out and foiled them. And they looked kind of weird with the fat 20s because it was like you had these fat upright 20s and this racy looking stabiliser, and it still didn't look right. So I thought, I thought the stabiliser was good, and I thought I've got to redesign the front fins. And that was when I got the idea to come up with a new fin template. So basically I made my fat upright twins a little smaller in the base, not as much tip, and actually increase the rake to sort of match the stabiliser. And then I had the three fins look like they actually belonged together, whereas before they didn't look like they belonged together. And there was quite a lot of experimentation, and this was back in it's kind of the set fin days, or it might have been the very early days
Sounds
of fin
like-
plugs.
Yeah,
So-
early 90s,
Yeah,
mid-90s.
So I didn't really, make fins and make boards and ride them. It was more making fin templates and putting them on top of the original twins that I knew worked really well and trying to work out like a size and a rake in comparison to the fin. So it was more visual design than actually foiling a fin, sticking in a fin plug and going riding and going, it's not right. So I got them to the point where I was happy with them, and then sent the boards over, and I was kind of expecting sort of bad news. I wasn't, I was expecting an email, not an email, there's no email. I was expecting a letter back or a phone call back from Hiramichi going, the boards are great, but the guys rode them and they go shit elsewhere. But I either got a call or a letter, and I can't remember, and they were absolutely frothing, going, these boards go insane. And I'm kind of like, what the fuck,
Yeah.
They're not. I was actually really surprised that they go.
Pleasantly surprised.
I was kind of stoked that they went well. And again, no exaggeration here, I hadn't actually made myself. Hadn't actually made myself a Super Twin.
True
And
designer.
I hadn't actually made a board with that fin template in it. And when I got the response from them that they went really well, I kind of went, shit, I better make myself a board.
Right.
And put a fin, put a set of fins in, and I did, and I kind of went, wow, this, I made one, and it went great. And that was how, that fin sort of started. So, in all the time, I guess I've been using them, and it's probably, it's over 20 years or so. It was nearly like kind of a little secret fin set, because it's only been in the last probably 4 or 5 years that twins have re-emerged as a popular surfboard design. So for a long time, I've been riding the Super Twin model, which is a concave bottom wing swallow twin fin with these fins and the stabilizer. And I've made a lot of customs for people, and the surf shops in Newcastle, Slimes now that have been carrying the boards that they've been selling them. But it's nearly been this underground secret. I've had this sort of fin template that I've been using myself for years and years, and I know it works really well, and I've made boards for friends, and I've made boards through surf shops in Newcastle, Slimes where we're in now, and people have absolutely loved them and loved the fins, and now it's twin fins are popular. So for me, it's kind of really exciting to people are using these fins, and I'm getting really good feedback from people on how well they work. I know the colour, the fins are obviously black, white and blue. Black on the inside, blue on the outside with a white pin line on it. I've always kind of liked multicoloured fins because of, growing up and being around in the foiled fin generation where you saw the layers and, people laid up fin panels with various colours. And you could always tell a fin that was foiled really well because the layers were incredibly even. You'd see the same amount of colours. And then you'd see a fin that was foiled really badly, whether this curve here was uneven or there was more white at the bottom and less at the top, indicating sort of a bad foil. So I kind of always, again, growing up with fiberglass fins in single fins and twin fins, I'd always liked multicoloured fins as opposed to a plain coloured fin. And as you guys know, I've never really ridden clear surfboards. Like I love colourful surfboards. So I guess with this, when I first started talking to you guys about doing a fin with Futures, I think Pete asked me about what colour, and I sent him some samples of various colours that I liked in fins, and the black-blue combo was probably the one I liked best out of what I sent you guys, and that was obviously the one that you guys liked best as well. So the black, blue and white are the colours of Merriweather Surfboard Club, who I've been a member of and a supporter of, and they're based in Newcastle, and I've been in the club I think since I was about 10 years old, and the club has consistently turned out like some of the best surfers in Newcastle, and a lot of surfers that have ended up on the world tour, and I don't know if it's because of the club colours, but I've always liked the black, white, blue combo.
I think that might have something to do with it.
I think it's a really nice sort of combination of colours. So I was kind of stoked when the team at Futures went, we really like the black, white, blue colour combination. So that's sort of where it came from. It was, there was a reason. I liked it. You guys liked it, and I don't know. I think it looks really good.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, there's about 20 on average, 20 to 24 square inches of area in a twin fin, where your average thruster is about 15 square inches. So it's a good amount of more area. So having that full base and that connection to the surfboard just allows you to get whatever you push into it, allows you to go, get it back and get that forward momentum. I think it just fits it better, having that full base and the whole connection to the surfboard.
Well, originally the fin was designed for my Super Twin models, which was a modern version of a twin fin, concave bottom, contemporary rocker, and a wing swallow, and compared to a thruster, like a wider temper, wider center, wider nose, and a wider, fuller nose. But I think they kind of work in pretty much in anything, and I think they work as a pure twin fin set or as a 2+1 set. And I think we're finding with so many shapers worldwide and surfboard manufacturers embracing twin fins again and making so many variations on twin fins, from like modern high performance ones to the semi-fish ones to fat fish ones to mid-length models. There's so many varieties of surfboards these days that people are configuring as twin fins with the fin plugs. So I kind of feel like they'll work in anything. I don't think they're limited to, I'm not going to say they'll only go in a fish or they'll only go in a high performance twin. I think they'll work in sort of pretty much anything. And I'm probably biased, and it's my product, but I've ridden them in high performance twin fins. I've ridden them in semi fishes. I've ridden them in fat, wide, ugly fishes. I've ridden them in mid lengths, and they feel great. Regardless of what shape, model, or type of board I've actually ridden. And the beauty of them is, when I kind of designed them, going back to the Japanese story, the theory was that they would work in junction with the stabilizer, but I also tried to keep enough, like size in the fin in terms of height, enough width in the base that it would also work as a pure twin. And having that little bit extra rake as opposed to an original twins, which are very stand up, I thought that rake would just give them that little bit of holding power where they would work as a twin fin. So that was kind of a design brief with them. It was done for a specific model, but I had hoped that what I came up with would be adaptable to a whole bunch of different boards, and adaptable to the point where, depending on the board you were riding and depending on the surf you were in, you could go, I'm riding the board as a pure 20 today, I'm tearing that out, or the surf's better today, or the type of board I'm riding, I'm going to use a stabilizer because the stabilizer will give it a little more drive. I haven't sort of spoken about the stabilizer, but which I should. The stabilizer is like an integral part of the fin set, and it was designed to be used in conjunction with the fin set, or not to be used at all. And the theory was, when I designed this fin, it was based on the size of the original twin in terms of base and height, but I narrowed the tip and gave it a little more rake, so it would work in conjunction with the stabilizer, and so it would look like it was a similar shape to the stabilizer. And the theory was, in certain boards and in certain types of surf, that you would be able to use this fin template as a pure twin and take the stabilizer out. So it will work as a pure twin. But the beauty of the stabilizer is that it just gives a board a little more speed, a little more drive and a little more control, as opposed to a pure twin fin set. And it sounds crazy because the fin, it's a tiny little fin in comparison to that. But if you rode this board without that in it, there would be a certain, characteristic when you surf it. If you put that fin in, it changes the whole dynamic of the board. And I guess the best way of describing it for me, if you take a rounded square or a round tail thruster as the most positive, drivey, dependable surfboard that you can imagine in good surf, and then you take a twin as the most fun, loose, drivey, fast, easy to ride board in small surf, that putting a stabilizer in gives you the happy medium between the two of them. It still has that lively, fast, loose twin fin feel, but it has a little bit of a thruster, positive, drivey feel as well. So I kind of feel like the 2+1 setup is the
Happy medium.
happy medium.
Yeah.
It's like it's the best of both worlds, and it fits perfectly between the two boards.
What's really interesting when you say that is, we've been doing a lot of work with computer simulation, CFD, and you think, okay, well, this thing's only 9 square inches. It's not going to give me that much push. Like you said, you wouldn't think you'd be able to push that much. But once you put something in the center that blocks the flow of the water, it influences the tail of the board. So you're not just pushing off of the fins, it also creates a high pressure on the tail. So it makes the tail something more that you're pushing off
Right.
of.
Never sort of thought of it that way.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
And yeah, because
It's really interesting to hear that. It's
Yeah, because once you put the fins on the board, the high pressure map completely changes. So all of a sudden now you have high pressure in these places around the fin, not just on the fin. And so that's what's really interesting. That's why the placement of the fins are so important on the board. And you guys, the shapers, have worked that out over trial and error over 30 years. And everyone's kind of putting it about in the same place.
I guess in terms of shaping, from a shaping point of view, I'm coming from a very non-technical angle. It's not really, it hasn't been analysed the way you guys have been able to analyse it. It's more, looks kind of good, size looks right, looks right. You make one and you're surfing, it feels good.
Well, it just goes to show you how important that is. That
Yeah.
look and the aesthetics and feel, I think they're closely related. So something looks good usually feels good.
Feels good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, it's not just the fin area. It's once you put the fins on the boards, the tail starts to become something you push off of. Without the fins, you're not pushing off the tail. Without the fins, the only high pressure is up on the rail. That's why you see the finless guys when they're riding without fins, they're really low center of gravity and their feet are up on the rail because that's the only high pressure. Stick the fins on and now you can push off the back foot because the fins have influenced the water flow and now are giving you high pressure on the surface of the board. The key difference is just that now with the thruster and you put 15 square inches of fin on that tail, that area of the tail becomes a lot more high pressure. And that's also why your fin placements are different on the thruster. They're up. The front fins are up at 11, the back fin's at 3 1/4. Once you go to a twin fin, you start to move it all back. And that's a major part of it is because that the tail, you lose that high pressure from that center fin being on the tail. And that's why the little 9 inches that you put on the tail all of a sudden influences it so much more.
Cool.
Can you explain high pressure, Vince? Like, expand on high pressure?
Yeah, that's that when you push your board, that's what's pushing against you. So in just a real simple term, why the fins, why we put them on the board this way is because you create high pressure and why the foil is there and you create the low pressure. So you actually get a suction of the low pressure, the push of the high pressure, and then you get your rail. And your rail's creating high pressure too. So it's almost as if these are acting against each other in a turn. And it's like you're squeezing a watermelon seed between your fingers. And that's why the placement of the fin to the rail is so important. You start to move this thing around and you lose that interaction of the rail and the fin.
Right.
And same thing here. So you need that high pressure to push off of. And that's what you're doing. You're creating that high pressure. Something that you know just intuitively, and you never thought about it like that.
I've never really thought about it.
Yeah.
I guess it's interesting to hear it explained.
Yeah.
I think in terms of a set of a 2+1 set, I think there's a whole range of wave conditions that they can be surfed in. Everything from absolute garbage, 1 to 2 foot slop, to solid 6 foot plus good waves. And I feel that the stabilizer expands that range of moving a fin set into good surf, because you could, again, you could ride this board as a pure twin when the surf was really small, and then if it was like 6 foot and pumping with really good walls where you want a little more like drive and control, obviously you would whack in the stabilizer. So I know, I sort of think a 2+1 set is incredibly adaptable, because you can pure twin fin when it's small, you can twin fin and stabilize it when it's small, you can and then when it's bigger, you can pure twin or stabilizer it as well. It's like you're not confined by gee, I've only got 2 sets of fins, I wish I had a little more drive because the surf was bigger or more powerful. So I think it opens up sort of all these options, but I think I kind of ride them in anything.
I agree. I would say the twin fin's probably the most crucial board to have on a surf trip, because it does have the widest range of, I would say, fun. Fun experience on a wave from 2 foot, 1 foot to 6 foot. It will work in big waves because it catches waves really easy. And then with the modern shapes, they hold really well in high speeds. So it's definitely always something that I bring on a surf trip.
Excellent. Well, we've got some new stuff that Vince has been working on that you wouldn't have seen yet, more on the innovation side. So these are the reverse 3-2 twins. So I feel like it'd be something cool for you to check out and you guys to have a chat about, maybe Vince to talk about sort of what's behind them.
It's good to look at this on the board. Can you take this fin off?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I think I have a good head.
Wow.
Yeah. Keep filming. You see what's going on there?
Yeah. How long have you been experimenting with these, Vince? Is this brand new, or
Well,
is this
that particular design is brand new.
Yeah.
I've got some really good feedback from Rasta. We went over and talked to him about it this week.
Has this idea come from a shaper or a surfer, or is this just something that's come out of the Futures
this
think
is
tank and you guys have gone, let's try this guy?
Okay, so what's going on here is there's a break in the fin. Right about here, we add extra cant. There's about 3 degrees extra cant. And then on this particular set, we tow the foils 2 degrees straighter. So like on a twin fin, when you set the fins on the board for a twin fin, they're usually a little bit straighter and a little bit less cant than a thruster. And so I did that same thing inside the fin. This concept of breaking the foil or breaking the cant and towing the foil different directions, I've experimented back 15 years ago, or actually almost 20 years ago now. And we came out with this whole vector series back in the day, and then we stopped it for other reasons. But when we started thinking about making twin fins, I reversed it. So there's a product out on the market right now called the 3-2. It's a thruster set. And we cant it out 3 degrees more. So at the tip, it's 9.5 degrees, and we tow it in back 2 degrees. And I thought for the twin fin, we'll do the exact opposite, because you do set the fins in, differently. And the feedback's been great. So how, you put the stabilizer in here so that you can get a little bit more push. Well, this cant and reduced toe and the foil. So if you can see, it's got the inside foil on it, the vector foil. There's a tremendous amount of grip just coming off these fins, and these fins are hard to break free.
So they're designed to be no stabilizer. It's a pure
twin, but I mean, like you said, you could put the stabilizer in there and add, for bigger, more grip. But you can get away without the stabilizer because it does grip the water so much.
Yeah. So Vince, 20 questions. What angle is the bottom of the fin set at? Because when you set up a set of fins at certain degrees.
Yeah, so these are 4 degrees.
Right.
And I don't know, what did we do your twin fin at?
I think they're 6.5.
6.5. So so they're more straight up.
So, and the little square tip.
So the vector foil, it tends.
Sorry, this is the little where it feels like there's nearly a concave channel in here.
Yeah, and even down at the bottom. So the whole foil itself is concave.
It kind of they look a tiny bit like, back in the twin fin days. If a twin fin was like packed really badly, like for an airline flight, you had two pressing down on it, and it either got hot or really cold, it could actually bend. Like
when I first started, first started doing this, that's what a lot of people said.
Like it nearly looks like something went wrong.
Well, you know what?
The tip got bent.
That's usually because the resin didn't catalyze.
Right.
So you put it in a hot car and you put it on the fins, they'll flex out and they'll stay that way. Yeah. No, I've heard
it's intentional.
It's intentional. Yeah, I've heard that response. So when you ride just a pure foil like this, they tend to grip and stick to the water a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And so we cut the tip off so you'd have a little bit more break free.
Right.
And it works really nice when you're foiling the fins for this inside foil, for this vector foil. It just foils up a lot better when there's a flat tip.
Wow. It's exciting. It's kind of interesting with, since the invention of fin plugs, the way it's opened up, all the possibilities in fin design. Because prior to fin plugs, when fins were glassed in, no one really wanted to experiment. You just put in the fin that you knew worked really well because of the effort in putting a fin in, of sticking it, roving it, sanding it. And if you went to a ton of trouble, you could tear them out and redo it, but it was such a mission to actually do it that
it was difficult to put a really good foil, right? I mean, you got to stick it in the rack, and you don't have good angle, and you don't have you don't have good light because of where you're doing it. Yeah, and I think that was the biggest benefit of the fin system that we saw at Futures, because the background, the guy I learned fin foiling from was a windsurfer, and he did the windsurf fins. And as you know, with the windsurf, when they first started windsurfing, the big problem was slipping out.
Yeah.
And so the fin design in windsurf was a huge deal because it was the only way that they could get the power down from the sail through to the board was having a good foiled fin. So we took a lot of what they were doing and started putting it in the surfboard fins. And so that was kind of our thing, a well-foiled fin tech. But and I think it's been an oversight, and it is something because everybody, and it does change the feel quite a bit. When you start messing around with the different foils and the different flex, it really changes the feel of the surfboard.
It's actually phenomenal, the difference that fins make. The size of the fin, the shape of the fin, the flex, the foil, because shapers go to incredible lengths in terms of rails, rocker, concaves. And, with the advent of shaping machines, you can experiment, like add a 16th of tail rocker or a 32nd of concave or something. You can make all these incredible fine adjustments to the shape of a board. But the really interesting thing is, no matter how well the board is shaped, or no matter how many, groovies, how much groovy shit you put in the bottom, is you take those out. Or if there was a fin there, you take that third fin out and try and surf it without fins, then it doesn't do what we want it to do. It's sort of pointless.
On the tail,
It doesn't matter how perfectly the board's shaped. If these guys aren't in there, it's like I think you might as well throw it away.
Yeah. When you look at the thruster, there's 45 square inches of area on an average that you're putting on there under the board that you're going to influence the way the water flows off the bottom, and you're going to push off of. And then so that's why it's so important to have the details in these fins, the foils, to be accurate and well done.
Like, I think we're actually just scratching the surface in terms of fin design.
I agree.
It's just
I agree.
My fin, it's an old fin, but I know it works, and I've experimented with different fins, and I just keep going back to it because it's everything I've done since works, but I don't think it works as good as that original fin, the 2+1 set with you guys. But again, I think the possibilities are are endless of, I don't know where we're going, but I think the possibilities are endless for fin design. And I think, fin design, shape, size, foil, rake is equally important to, all the design work that is actually going into surfboards.
Yeah, I think, before I started working with the computer and the fluid dynamics and setting up a model, a lot of stuff was just intuitive, right? What works, what doesn't. You get the feedback from the different riders, and boy, that how that is, right? It's fast. Okay, what does that mean?
It's hard to define. A lot of people have trouble actually explaining it too, because you're trying to explain the feel. It's not like a night and day thing that you can quantify. It's like the way something feels.
Yeah, you're an interpreter. Yeah, so you're interpreting. And so we had our concepts, and over the years, I've spent time with a lot of different shapers and talked about a lot of different design concepts, and everyone's kind of right along the same view. And then I got the computational fluid dynamic output, and that was it took years to kind of understand what does that graph mean compared to what he's saying. So we've been about 7 years into it. But what's really interesting is we started off with template, and it's why the Futures line looks the way it does, why we start with template, because that was our first defining what's the difference between. So between, let's say, a pivot template and a rake template, we see about a 10% difference between, as much as maybe 12% difference in the lift drag ratio. So the amount of lift force that's coming versus the amount of drag that it's creating, right? When we got into foils and we started mapping out the foils, we saw as much as a 30% difference. Wow. So that's why, and you can't, a lot of guys don't really notice the foils. And it's because of the fact in the glass on days, you weren't doing this. Yeah. You weren't going to do this. You weren't going to put all this time. And, as much as, the difference in just the leading edge makes a huge difference. And that's where, so and then you got the flex, where we haven't even, that's all intuitive and what we've done. And I've gotten as far as taking pictures of now when it's flexed out, how it flexes. But those three aspects, there's a world in there.
So you think you're still scratching the surface on flex?
I think, well, we're getting there. Yeah. I don't have numbers on it, but based on the rider feedback, and yeah, I think so. And also because of the technology and how we build the fins. A lot of times, or for the past 30 years, the thickness of the foil was tied to the flex of the fin. Yeah. Now with, let's say, the vapor core technology that we're doing, now I can have really thick foils with flexible, with flex. And when you push on this, we're pushing 30 pounds, it flexes out a lot. But how it flexes too is really important, whether it opens like a door or folds over. And that has an influence on how well the rail is going to hold in on a big carve. So I think there's, like you said, I think there's still so much that we can do. And for us, it's like when we first started doing this, we were just coming out with everything. We didn't really know how to sell it or how to pinpoint it on what boards. And so we've got to really take a step back, and we know we have this, but let's use it in an application. Let's work with the shaper. Right. Let's work with the board design. It's easier for the customer because they come in and look at the wall. It's like, holy smokes. Just give me the red one.
It's mind-boggling. A lot of the time it comes down to the color.
Yeah, give me the red one.
or the recommendation from from the shop or the store.
Right. Yeah. And so that's what we've been trying. We've been on this 20-year process of trying to figure out how to better educate the customer, how to better educate the shop seller, and take them along this journey that we've been on, because we know that the more they know about fins, the better experience they're going to have with their equipment.
Yeah. Have you, with your tech, have you been able to, maybe a silly question, work out how much, if there's such a word, how much pressure is on a set of fins? Like in a bottom turn or a cutback?
Well, so,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, so...
Like I don't know, the dynamic forces or something that...
Yeah, well, how many inch pounds so Not so much with the CFD. I mean, we get a force and we get the, the 3 pound difference, but what's reality comes from more the real world. And so back early in the day, we had a set of production fins that we were running, and we started getting braking and bottom turns. So we took those fins and we looked at how many inch pounds would take them to brake. So I think we're, a good guy's putting more than 80 pounds per square inch on the fin, which is a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
Is a lot. And you got, and then you start to get up in the elite levels, and they're putting a lot of pressure on these fins. So not definitively, but I know it's somewhere around there.
Yeah,
I know it's somewhere around there, and that's where we set our brake tests.
Right.
So, Mark, what's your initial take on a fin like that looks like this? Is that something you'd want to ride? Is that something you want to test out?
Yeah, my mind is like so open, Pete. It's if you think you close your mind, you stop living. I'm like, so open to stuff. Like my first impression was not, oh, that's too weird. I wouldn't like to try that. My first impression was like, oh, holy shit, how cool is this? I'd like to try that. So,
Awesome.
Especially seeing a set of 20s, if Vince had pulled out a set of thrusters, I may not have been quite as excited or as keen to try it. I would have liked to, but obviously, keen to try a set of twins because I don't know, you're always making surfboards, and the same with you guys at Futures making fins. You never feel like you've done your best work or shaped your surfboard or made your best set of fins. There's no, for me, and I'm sure it's the same for you, Vince, there's no point where you go home at maybe 5 o'clock at one arvo and go, well, that's it, I can never make a better fin. We're done, just having a cup of tea on the lounge, and I don't have to think about, evolving anymore. I think that it's one of the wonderful things about surfboard, shaping, design, and fin design is that you're always striving to improve it. There's no point where you ever go, that's as good as I can actually make it. You're always like going, how can I make this better? It's kind of like this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that you
keep chasing.
And it's like a personal quest. I guess for your own satisfaction or gratification, but it's also because you're making and creating something that people are actually spending a lot of money to buy, whether it's a board or a set of fins. It's money they work hard for and they save up for, and people get a ton of fun and enjoyment out of recreational surfing. So you're always striving to make the product better so they enjoy their experience sort of more and more. That's sort of always been my theory with making boards. I've never, I've made shaped boards where I've gone, wow, I went off. That's, best board I've shaped for a long time. But I never actually think, well, that's it, I can't do any better. The next one I kind of try and make it better. It's like this like quest you're on.
Yeah, and I think, for like a guy like Dave Rostovich, that was the same thing, because we sent him these and he was tripping. He was just going, oh my God, this is like a 7th gear. I thought the Vector was a 6th gear and this is like a 7th gear. And then he goes, well, how could you make it better? And I said, well, I'm thinking about that, but let's...
throwing the challenge at you.
Yeah, he totally threw a challenge at me. What, can you make it more radical? Can you make it better? And so that got, and like you, I'm still thinking, okay, what's the next evolution of this? We haven't even come out with it yet, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm already thinking about what's next. But and that's where it's like, okay, let's take it, slow down. The marketing team says, slow down. We gotta, don't tell anybody about the next one. Don't get anybody to write the next one.
Well, you're the mad scientist out the back, mixing up the potions.
Yeah.
Or foiling the fins. Look what I've got, guys.
But like you, I want to feel it too.
Yeah.
So I'm amping. I just did another design. I was amping to get waves, and the waves were terrible. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at the maps, going, "Where can I go? I gotta go somewhere to go surf this." Yeah, that's what keeps it going.
Keeps it going.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's really, really good.
I think it's a rule of thumb. If you make yourself, for me, if you make yourself a new board, and you've just said it with making a set of fins, the surf is always crap.
Right.
goes with the territory. You know, you never finish the board, or in your case, a set of fins, and you go, it's pumping. I can go and use them straight away.
Right.